John 6, Jesus' crowds are up in the thousands. By the end of John 6, Jesus crowds 12. It's the fastest negative church growth in history. Jesus takes them from thousands at the feeding of the 5,000 to 12 because he preaches, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part in me. And the crowds turn away. Who wants to follow that? And there's Jesus inviting you into the table to go have dinner with me, feast on me, and find life. And as those crowds dissipate, we do see this turn in the ministry of Jesus of, once again, the wrong people showing up and looking for Jesus. Whether it's a centurion soldier who has no rights to God through Israel's Torah, or a woman with an issue of blood who should be yelling unclean when she walks into town, or perhaps a group of lepers who walk by Jesus who are supposed to be in quarantine and isolation, and yet one of them is even embraced by Jesus and hugged, carrying a disease that is airborne and contact-borne, and Jesus doesn't seem to care. He's breaking up funerals. He's casting out devils. He's taking his disciples across the sea to the Gadarenes, a place none of them had ever been in their lives because good Jewish boys stayed away. And yet here comes Jesus in because there's someone there who needs him. And as you watch Jesus, you start to see that the Jesus you found at the Nativity and you thought, why are these people getting Jesus first? It continues as he goes into his ministry. He doesn't leave those roots. He just continues to live that out. You're going to find me in unexpected places and in unexpected ways. And then we find Jesus in the crucifixion. We find him at the cross. Look at John chapter 12, because I want to show you that second way that we find Jesus, and it's a way that we still find Jesus. In John chapter 12, Jesus, in verse 20, there were certain Greeks among those who came up to worship at the feast. Notice they're not Jews, they're Greeks, which means they're Gentiles. And they came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee, and asked him, saying, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. I think they probably came to Philip because he had the most Gentile-sounding name of all of the disciples. Possibly even was a Gentile. Philip came and told Andrew, and in turn Andrew and Philip told Jesus. But Jesus answered them, saying, The hour has come that the Son of Man should be glorified. Most assuredly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone, but if it dies, it produces much grain. This has got to be one of the oddest answers Jesus ever gives to a question no one asks. What'd Jesus say? Well, it's time for me to be glorified. Unless a corn falls into the ground, dies, there's never going to be a harvest. No one asked him an agricultural question. No one asked him about how to have a better corn crop. What was asked was a group of Gentiles. They came to his disciples and said, Sir, we want to see Jesus. Okay, that's perfect because we're preaching a message called Finding Jesus. So if we're preaching Finding Jesus and they want to see Jesus, boom, that's a great place to start, because if you're looking for Jesus, we can help you find Jesus. And so they come to Jesus and say, hey, here's a group of men that want to see you. But Jesus' eyes are on the cross, and so he answers this way. The only way they can really see me is on the other side of the cross. Because unless the grain goes into the ground and dies, it can't produce the kind of fruit that feeds the world. So if I'm going to feed these Gentiles who are coming in, I'm going to have to go and die, because if I go and die, I can produce a crop called resurrection, called new covenant, in which everybody can eat, not just those who get to meet me in the natural. And that leads me to this thought. If you want to find Jesus, you'll find him at the place where things die. So when you came to Jesus, what happened to the old you? He died. You want to find Jesus now that you've met him at the cross? You're going to find him in the place where you lay things down. That's how you find Jesus. Not when you pick things up. You find Jesus when you lay things down. You find Jesus when things go into the ground to die. You find Jesus at the end of all of the stuff that used to work but is now a failure and isn't going anywhere. And boom, there you find Jesus. Look at all the moments in your life where you had a fresh revelation of Jesus. I'm not talking about the moment you got saved. We left that behind 20 minutes ago. I'm talking about when you found Jesus in your marriage, and you found Jesus in your children, and you found Jesus in your job, and you found Jesus in your finances or your mind or your body. What happened? Something died. Something you gave up on. There was a little part of you that went, all right, I'm done fighting this. I'm going to get my hands off this situation. I'm finished with it. And then boom, you found Jesus. Why is that? Because he said, unless it goes into the ground and dies, you don't get to see what it could be. As long as you keep holding on to it and trying to make it work on your own, you don't get the real crop. You just have one piece of corn. But if you put that piece of corn in the ground and let it die, and let my Father do what he does to corn, well, then we'll multiply it. And when it comes out, you'll eat for a whole year. You won't just have a snack, you'll have fed the family. In other words, the you that comes out of the other side is going to be way better than the you that went in. But if you want to find Jesus in the midst of that, then let something go.